Expressionless, he asked, "You kill him?" "What do you think? You want out of there?" Rufus gripped the bars, and his eyes glittered. Hurrying, I turned the key in the cell's lock, swung the door wide, and Rufus Two Hats stepped out. "Merlin Fanshaw," I told him, "also known as the Bodacious Kid." Two Hats studied me. "You used to be a lawman?" "Once," I said. "I've done a lot of things." I grabbed a rifle off the rack and scooped cartridges from the cabinet. "Help yourself," I said, "but let's make tracks. If somebody heard that shot—" Two Hats was already buckling on a gun belt. "I got no horse," he said. "Take Murdoch's roan. Glenn sure won't need him." Outside, silence ruled the darkened street. Up beyond the bank, lamplight glowed in the windows of the Oasis saloon. Somewhere in the darkness beyond, a dog began to bark. I swung up onto the gruya and turned the animal away into the night. Behind me came the hoofbeats of Glenn's roan and Two Hats' voice. "Where are we going?" he said. I spurred the gruya, and the animal struck out on the road at a lope. "Anywhere," I said, "as long as it's away from here." That's how Rufus Two Hats and me departed Dry Creek on a quiet Sunday night in September. But before I tell you what happened next, I need to step back a week or so and tell you what happened before. Dry Creek, Montana lies east of the Cayuse Hills on a sometime stream that gave the town its name. Wasn't much of a town, I guess, but it was my town, and 2 weeks ago I had been glad to come back to it. As a deputy under U.S. Marshal Chance Ridgeway, I had just closed out an assignment down on the Crow Indian Reservation, and it was good to be back among the folks I grew up with. I checked my horses into Walt's livery, treated myself to a meal down at Ignacio's Cafe, and lifted a few cold ones with the boys down at the Oasis Saloon. The first couple of days I played cribbage and swapped stories with my friend Glenn Murdoch, and spent some pleasant hours a courting my longtime lady friend, Pandora Prettyhawk. During the warm afternoons after she got off work at Blair's boarding house, where I was back in my old room, Pandora and me used to stroll together among the cottonwoods down by the creek. We held hands and talked foolishness, the way lovers do. Those were special times. Pandora always gave me the feeling that she understood me, but that she loved me anyway, which struck me as a rare thing. Pandora and me must have seemed quite a contrast. Not just because she was a female and I wasn't. I stand 5'10" in my boots, while Pandora is a good 5 inches shorter. My hair's unruly and dark brown. Hers is sleek and black as a raven's wing. My eyes are blue. Hers are brown. I tend to be clumsy sometimes, except when I'm a horseback, but Pandora moves with an easy grace, confident and poised. I recall one Sunday afternoon that September, a warm day full of that special golden autumn light, Pandora and me walking down among the cottonwoods. She had on her green-checked gingham dress, and I could tell from the look on her face that she was especially happy. She was looking up to where the leaves in the tops of the bigger cottonwoods had already turned bright yellow. "They seem to know summer's over," Pandora said. "They're putting on their autumn finery." "Yes," I said, feeling poetic. "They know the seasons are changing. Soon they'll shed their leaves entirely and bed down for the winter." I looked down at her pretty face and smiled. Pandora smiled back and gripped my hand a little tighter and leaned her head against my shoulder. "But they'll wake up again when spring comes," she said. "They'll yawn and stretch and dress again in tender green." By that time I was caught up in it, like we were writing a story together. "Then along about the 1st of June they'll cast their seeds to the winds, and cottonwood fluff will burst out and drift down on the air." "Like summer snow," Pandora said. I had turned 22 in June, and I was making good money, $2 a day, as deputy under U.S. Marshal Chance Ridgeway. Most federal deputies were paid on a fee basis. However, Uncle Sam tended to be less than prompt in settling his accounts, so Ridgeway paid his deputies a straight salary against fees, and for the first time in my life I had a steady income. But then the money had begun to give me ideas. Walking among the cottonwoods with Pandora that day, my financial status suddenly took on a new importance. It may be true, as Tennyson wrote, that in the spring a young man's fancy turns to thoughts of love. All I know is that on that sunny afternoon my own fancy took a turn toward matrimony. Once I allowed the notion into my mind, it commenced to grow on me. I had $500 in the Cattleman's Bank of Dry Creek. A place of my own, maybe a small horse outfit somewhere with Pandora at my side, seemed like a real possibility. I didn't say anything to Pandora about my notion, and that turned out to be a good thing. But early the next morning I rode out to the M Cross to see about buying a horse I had admired. It was just my bad luck that while I was away, outlaws held up the Dry Creek Bank, shot Bob Dingle the teller, and made off with all the cash on hand, including my $500. It was Deputy Sheriff Glenn Murdoch himself who broke the news. I rode into town, leading my new gelding, to find him waiting for me at Walt's livery. I grinned as I drew rein and was about to brag about my horse trade when I noticed Glenn's expression. His face was serious as a miser's funeral. "About time you got back," Glenn said. "Outlaws robbed the bank yesterday. They killed young Bobby Dingle and made off with the cash." My right foot had just touched the ground. My left foot was in the stirrup, and I still had the reins and saddle horn in my hands. When he said that, I just stopped and stared at him. "Robbed the bank? They killed Bobby?" Glenn scowled. "Is there an echo in this barn? I believe I just told you that." He paused. "Ridgeway's in town, over at the hotel. He wants to see you." As I followed Glenn through the front door to the Grand Hotel, I was still trying to get my mind around Bobby's being dead. I was full of questions ready to be asked, but Glenn just pointed me toward the staircase and said, "Your boss will fill you in. He's upstairs. Number 10. The stairs creaked underfoot as we climbed, and the hallway seemed unusually dark as we moved toward room number 10. Glenn stopped and rapped sharply on the door. "It's Glenn Murdoch, Marshal," he said. "I've got Merlin with me." There was a muffled, "Come in," and I followed Glenn inside. U.S. Marshal Chance Ridgeway sat by the window at a small table littered with papers. He glanced up as we entered the room and nodded. "Good of you to join us, Deputy," he drawled. "I understand you missed the robbery yesterday." "I was out at the M Cross," I said, "buying a horse from Thane McAllister." I felt guilty, but how was I supposed to know outlaws would pick yesterday to rob the bank? I should have been here," I said. "What happened?" Ridgeway nodded at the empty chairs. "Sit down, boys," he said. "It hurts my neck talking up at you." Glenn eased himself into one of the chairs. I sat down in the other. Ridgeway leaned back and laced his fingers across his vest. "The long and short of it is that original George Starkweather is back in business. Mostly he's been busy rustling cattle, but I guess he ran short of operating capital. Yesterday, George and 5 known members of his gang cleaned out the Dry Creek Bank and murdered Bobby Dingle." Scattered among the papers on the table were a number of wanted posters. Ridgeway gathered up a handful and dealt them out like playing cards. As each poster fell, the marshal called its name. "George Starkweather, Shorty Benson, Crazy Ike Mullins, Pronto Southwell, Tom Blackburn, Chickasaw Wilson, Rufus Two Hats." His brows narrowed. "As depraved a pack of human hellhounds as a man could ask for." Ridgeway turned in his chair and looked down at the street through the open window. "They hit the bank at 10:42 yesterday morning. Tom Blackburn held the horses while the others went inside. They made the customers lay down on the floor and dragged banker Sheets out of his office. When Dingle didn't come up with the money fast enough to suit them, they shot him and helped themselves. They cleaned out the cash drawers in the vault and headed for their horses. Apparently Rufus Two Hats was a mite slow getting mounted. A farmer from over on the Big Porcupine pulled a Winchester out of his wagon and went to shooting. He missed Rufus, but dropped his horse. I suppose because the horse was a slightly bigger target." The marshal nodded.